A very good evening. You're watching News Live on Rupavahini. I'm Shanika Pereira.
A very good evening, everyone. I'm Faisal Bongzo, and we begin with the headlines of tonight's news. The President calls upon the people to be united to develop the country in the present era. The local business community has been urged to be prepared to overcome the competition in the international market. The Colombo South Port is to be completed at a cost of 85 billion rupees. News overseas, the US President says that his intelligence agencies had enough information to foil a Nigerian's attempt to blow up a Detroit-bound plane.
And now for those and other stories in detail. President Lanka Rupavahini paid an observation visit to the Colombo South Pier of the port today. He inspected the activities of the Colombo Extension project. President Rupavahini inspected the breakwater at the Colombo South Port. The construction work of 1.5 kilometers of the 6.5 kilometer breakwater has been completed. The container handling is to be increased by 7.5 million after the completion of the construction work of the Colombo South Pier. The construction work of the first phase of the Colombo South Port is to be completed by December next year at a cost of 85 billion rupees. The country will be transformed to a hub port in Asia, creating more investment opportunities and direct and indirect employment. The chairman of the Port Authority, Dr. Priya Banduvikrama, and senior officials accompanied the President during his tour of the Colombo port.
We have with us this evening a very special guest in the studio in Dr. Ranjit Bandara, a lecturer of the University of Colombo and an economist. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Bandara. Well, the first question I would like to ask you is that a common candidate of the opposition is backed by two political parties who are with two different and extreme economic policies. How do you see this situation?
Now you see, this has been the situation that we have been noticed over the last couple of weeks. Now if you look at the economic policies of the JVP, as you said, they are in the extreme corner, and you could see the better insight into the UNP economic policy in the policy documentation that they have presented in 2005, that is regaining Sri Lanka. So UNP is in an extreme corner and the JVP in another corner, and I don't think that there is any possibility for them to work some common policies to develop Sri Lanka. And again, what you could see is that you see that so far in the political debate that you have not seen any policy documentation. The simple reason would have been that they are in two extreme corners.
Doctor, many countries faced the recession. Sri Lanka was one of them. Now, furthermore, we were burdened with the war that we had to go through for 3 decades. Then, of course, subsequently the humanitarian operation. But the government, headed by His Excellency the President, did not deter the development, and the mega development and infrastructure drives did continue. How do you see this?
Now, you see, since independence, we never had economic policy that is based on the local needs, the local requirements. For the first time in the history, 2005, the Mahindra Chintana development policy package introduced a series of policies. There are about 611 policy programs within which we were able to handle the global financial crisis in such a way where we were able to develop the local economy, where the agriculture, the rural industries became prominent within the Sri Lankan economic sector. And as a result, with the global financial crisis, we were able to stand on our own. That is the simple reason the policy package that was introduced in 2005.
And now I also see that His Excellency the President wants to make Sri Lanka self-sufficient in food. How do you see that as well?
Now you see, within the global financial crisis, we also noticed that there is a huge shortage in food all over the world, and the food prices went up to the sky. But we, being such a small nation and such a small economy, because of the local economic development policy package that was in the Mahindra Chintana program, we were able to manage at least to an extent the local food requirements.
Now, coming back to the presidential elections, the opposition candidate has made many pledges, and one, of course, is the outrageous one of 10,000 rupees being given to the government servants. How do you see this? Do you think this is workable?
During the election, you would see that the various political parties come up with various pledges and promises. Now, if you look at this particular pledge, the increase in the salaries of the public servants by 10,000 rupees, plus there are a number of other pledges. In my assessment, minimum 700 billion rupees will add into the money supply of the country. Now, there is no policy package so far have introduced to increase the production. Now, the money supply increases, on the other hand, there is no production. Definitely, there will be a hyperinflation in Sri Lanka at time to come if this implemented. And again, now there are about 1.3 public servants and 6 million private sector employees. Now, if they come out asking, we also need a salary increase similar to the public servants, and this will be the end of the Sri Lankan economy. Because you see, where you could get the money, you have no way to increase. The only way to increase the required amount of money, you have to increase the tax. Now, I remember the recent estimates, minimum 1,250 rupees every single citizen in the country must be paid as compulsory tax to pay the salaries of the public servants.
So as an economist, you see this is totally unworkable?
No, I don't think that this is possible at all.
Another important aspect that I thought I should touch on is with regard to the allegations of corruption and malpractices.
Now you see, this has been the slogan that has been presented by a number of the people in the opposition campaign. Now, if you look at from a political economy perspective, this is part of the capitalism. Now, if you look at mine employee in an organization, you know, this has become part of the process that he also started cheating a bit, right? And everywhere in the capitalist world, this is it. And now, so far, number of times it has been requested that show us the evidence, but there is no evidence. Now, this has been everywhere in the air.
I know these allegations have been put forward, but I know this has been requested for documentary evidence, and they're not coming up with it.
There is no documentary evidence. Therefore, I think this is a mere. I mean, you see, my personal opinion, being a very responsible citizen in the country, we must argue on the policy rather than some of these unwanted political debates.
Thank you very much. It was nice having you, Dr. Ranjit Bandara, on the news tonight. Thank you very much. And continuing with more news at home, Minister Maithripala Sirisena says that the mandate of the people is with the President. Addressing a media conference in Colombo today, he pointed out that the opposition candidate should understand that hatred politics should be continued, cannot be continued. Minister Maithripala Sirisena noted that Sarath Fonseka cannot win the presidential elections and is always thinking about a military rule. He has appointed his old friends in the army to carry out his election campaign in all districts. People are against military rule, and he further pointed out that the opposition candidate Sarath Fonseka is engaged in hatred politics.
මේ රටේ මිනි කඳු ගොඩ ගැසෙනවාට පොන්සේක මහත්මයා කියනවා එයා ජයග්‍රහණය කළා ඉතින් ඊට පසුදා ඉඳන් කටු කන්න දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා වුණ තරම් මේ කටු කියලා කියන්නේ කාගේද මේ කටු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ඇමතිවරුන්ගේද සන්ධානයේ නායකයින්ද සන්ධානයේ ජයග්‍රහණයට වැඩ කරන පාක්ෂිකයින්ද මේ රටේ ජනතාවගේද මේක පොන්සේක මහත්මයා කියන්නේ කාගේ කටුද මේ කන්න දෙන්න නම් කියලා කිව්වේ කියලා හිතනවා